Hello and welcome to Knowledge by Nature. In today's video, I'm going to be giving you a curriculum flip through on learning language arts through literature, and this is from Common Sense Press. Now, before we get started, I do want to let you know that they sent this to me at no cost of my own for my honest review. We have used Common Sense Press in the past, and with anything that I've used for the most part, I am asking for it. So it's something that I have been interested in. And so I reach out to the company and I see if they would consider working with me. And so that's always, I want you to see the lens through that as far as, yes, it was donated, but yes, I also was interested in it beforehand, which caused me to even ask for it in the first place. So I want to talk about this today. And it's awesome because it's an all-in-one language arts program. And sometimes that is exactly what you need. So if that is something you are interested in, I would love if you consider sticking around. All right, before we get started, I am a homeschool mom to an almost sixth grader. We love all things books, homeschool, and sharing our journey with you. And if that is something that you are interested in, I would love if you consider hitting that subscribe button. And if you enjoy this video, give me a thumbs up. So we have used a few items from Common Sense Press. We used their fourth grade version, which is the orange book, and we have used their we have used their history program for American history, and I'll put those down below in case you are interested in those. But one thing that they do, rather than give you a grade number here, they give it as a color. And so if we look really quickly, here's the series that they have. And you can see that the purple book is a fifth grade skills. The orange book was fourth grade. And you can see all of the colors coordinate with a grade there. And then we have the gold book, which goes down into high school years. Now, this is a very, very interesting program in the fact that it is an all-in-one. So if we look at the teacher's book here, you can see that they're saying grammar, vocabulary, spelling, reading, composition, research skills, and high-order thinking skills. Now, in the past, I would have probably steered away from wanting an all-in-one, but sometimes that is just what you need. Let's say you have multiple children and you need them to be able to do some work independently. This program is going to do that. This is very, very easy to use for the student independently. You also just don't want a lot of moving parts. You want it all together. This has all of these things in it. There are book studies in here. So instead of me continuing to ramble, let's just go ahead and jump in. Now, there's something cool about this is that you do not have to have the student book. So this book right here, you do not actually have to have that. And you can see it's quite a bit bigger than the teacher's book, not like by a giant amount, but it is bigger. But you do not have to use that. You could just use the teacher's book and then get a notebook to just do the assignments in. But if you're needing something that just makes it easier to hear, you go student, you want them to be more independent, you would want to get the student book. Now, quickly on the pricing, right now, as of March 2025, we are looking at the teacher book for $34 and the student activity book for $28. But if you just want the teacher's book, which you wouldn't have to get, you are looking at $34 for a complete language arts program. Okay. Something that I think is very interesting about this is that there are book studies in here too. So you are not only working with your grammar, which by the way grammar is taught in conjunction with writing. So it's not just an isolated subject. And that is something that you will hear many people that are talking about teaching grammar and things like that, that you want it integrated in there. You don't want it just to be like over by itself. Then we have vocabulary that is worked through there. There are reading skills. There are spelling assignments that are in here, as well as spelling tips in the back. Your student is going to be working on penmanship as you go through here. There are different high order thinking skills that you're going to be working through with this program. And then, as I also mentioned, there are the book studies. So just really quickly, the 4 books that you would need to do the book studies with is The Farmer Boy, The Trumpet of the Swan, Number of the Stars, and Caddy Woodlawn. Now, these are meant to be done by your student. The reading is to be done by your student, and then there are different questions and assessments with those. And so the book section is a little bit different than the rest, but we will go ahead and look what all is in here. Now, the program is set up for days 1 through 5, but that just really doesn't work for me. I need it to work whenever. And so we may stop 1 week on a Tuesday and pick up the next week on a Wednesday, even though it's Monday. So just because it says day 1, it doesn't mean that that is the day 1 of our week. We may be on day 4 of our week when we're actually on day 1. So we just use it as what works best for us. And then we have 36 numbered lessons and 4 of the book studies, which I just mentioned earlier. One thing I really liked about this is that it brings out literature that I might not have otherwise read or read parts of. And that's a lot of the times you might have a lesson. For instance, there was Mr. Popper's Penguins, and I think that was this book. Yes. So lessons 1 through 3, something like that, they're talking about Mr. Popper's Penguins. Just by the little excerpts that are in here, we were really, really interested in reading that. And so then we actually pulled it out. We read the whole book. So even though there isn't a book study on Mr. Popper's Penguins, there was enough about it that we got really interested and wanted to read it. We have our everyday words, which is contains passages of literature and learning activities. So like I just showed you right there with the Mr. Popper's Penguins, that's our everyday words here, and we're going to be dealing with those specific passages. And so as part of that everyday words section, you're going to be working with your grammar skills, you're going to be doing dictation and copying and instructing your student how to kind of write these passages and things like that. You have your 4 book studies, and they can be completed in a week usually, but you may need to adjust a little bit more time. And honestly, you can kind of use them however. So you don't even have to do the book study when the book study comes up, if that makes sense. So you could do the book study separately if you wanted to. And so that is something that's really nice. And honestly, it's kind of nice to just have this just for the book studies, because you're getting 4 book studies for that cost on top of everything else that is in here. We have review activities, which are found after everyday words, which is your lesson sections, and it is going to be talking about the skills that they learned during those times. We have assessments. There are 6 of those. We have an appendix, and then we have the enrichment answers. Now, if we're looking at the table of contents, you can see we began lesson 1 and 2 with America. And so that was actually the poem America the Beautiful. And so we're looking at this, and we're looking at the different things for those 2 weeks where we are referencing that right there. Here you can see that book study A has come up, and that is the Farmer Boy. Then we come to lessons 3 and 4 all the way to 7, which are talking about Mr. Popper's Penguins. But you can also see that we have an assessment here that covers the first 4 lessons. Here we have lesson 5, 6, 7 and another assessment. Then we come over here where we're going to do an oral presentation, and we're also going to be talking about tall tales in 8 through 11. Another book study, The Trumpet of the Swan. And here is where you might want to go ahead and do The Trumpet of the Swan before you do this. But I don't think it's absolutely necessary. To be honest, I think you can kind of move these around in the way that works best for you. So 11 through 15, we're working with The Trumpet of the Swan, where we have our 3rd assessment for those lessons. And then we move on to a poetry unit. So 11, 16, and 17 are the poetry, and then we come over into 18 through 21, where we're working with David Livingstone on The Foe of Darkness. Assessment 4, then we have our 3rd book study, which is Number of the Stars. We're working with another oral presentation, and then we are also talking about Strawberry Girl. After that, we have our assessment number 5, which is talking about those 24 through 28. Lessons 29 through 32 are Amos Fortune, the Free Man. Our assessment number 6, our very last book study, is Caddy Woodlawn, where we are finishing up this book with speech making and everyday words of the Star Spangled Banner. Now, something that is Something that I really like, before every section, you're going to see the skills that your student should be learning how to do during this time. So they are going to be learning how to use a dictionary, what a homonym is, how to do memorization, meter, noun, poetry, possessive noun, pronouns, rhyme, and syllable. If we keep going and we look at another everyday words, which is just really chapter 1, chapter 2, whatever you want to call it. Here was an oral presentation one in Tall Tales, where we're talking about characters, conclusion, conflict, introduction, plot, setting, solutions in Tall Tales. All of the skills that they need to master during this section right here are right there. And so it's very helpful to know this is what we're going to be looking at. This is what we're going to be focusing on. So when you get to the end of that assessment, did we learn those skills? All right, I'm going to jump over here to where we were talking about Mr. Popper's Penguins. So if you look back here, we were doing America, then we did our book study of the Farmer Boy, and now we are on lesson 3, Mr. Popper's Penguins. So in essence, this would be week 4. And with week 4, we are dealing with all of these skills here. We have adjectives, addressing an envelope, adverb, base or root word, capitalization, comma and proper noun, double negatives, hyphen, paragraph, plurals, sentence, subject and predicate, suffix, synonym, verb, and writing a card. So you can see there's kind of some neat skills in there that might not be in just every single program. Like, we might not think to do addressing an envelope or writing a card, and that is just some nice little add-ons that they have with this program. So Mr. Popper's Penguins is probably one of our favorite units that we did through here, and we just really enjoyed it. Now you can see we have like this dark section, and a lot of that is the part that they're going to be narrating or that they're going to be copying from the passage and things like that. Day 1, we're going to read the literature passage silently, and then they're going to ask the teacher to help you with any difficult words. So the student, you would be like, here, read this. This is where the student book is really handy because they can have their own passage right over here. There's different markings and things that they're going to have to do within that passage. So it's really nice for them to have their own book, but it is not necessary. Now, after this first section, they are going to tell it back in their own words, which is narration. And then as the teacher reads the lines in bold print aloud, they're going to write them down. So we're doing some dictation at this point, or copy work. Then they're going to list 4 to 6 words that they should be doing for spelling. So if you already have a spelling program, you can just skip this. If not, here we are talking about the sound of chur, like nature or future. And then we have all of these different words that they're giving them. So that was the end of day 1. That is not a lot, but it's really effective and quite good. Day 2, we are talking about a complete sentence and how that is a complete thought, and a fragment, which is not a complete thought. And then we are going to be marking some of these words as far as, are they complete or are they a fragment? Over here, we have the answers to those questions. So if you are following along with your student book, you can look over here and you can get a quick grading on that. The next step that we're going to do for day 2 is a sentence contains 2 parts, a complete subject and a complete predicate. The next exercise that they're going to do is they're going to separate both of those. They're going to separate the complete subject from the complete predicate. Now, we actually took a lot of this off of the page sometimes. So instead of doing it workbook style, I would set it up with like different things, but you can definitely just continue to do it as a workbook too, which we did a lot of as well. Then D is pretend an animal. Any animal is delivered to your home by mistake. The zookeeper can't pick it up and the animal until The zookeeper says he can't pick the animal until tomorrow, so you'll have to care for it for 1 day. Luckily, the animal comes with a leash. Discuss the situation with your teacher. You might wonder, where will you keep the animal or what to feed it? Will you be able to play with it? What if the neighbors see it? And then after the discussion, they're going to write a paragraph, and it tells them that a paragraph is at least 5 sentences, that we want to have a main topic, that we want to indent. They're touching on different things right here just in this one little section. And then that is the end of day 2. Day 3, we're looking at that same literature passage again that we saw over here. And this time we are talking about those capital letters and how we may see capital letters in between the sentences sometimes. So those are going to be our proper nouns and things like that. And so they're going to use a colored pencil or a highlighter, and they're going to go back and they're going to underline or mark some of those words. After we went back and we've marked everything, we're going to be talking about nouns as far as common nouns and proper nouns. The next thing that we're going to be talking about is we're going to write proper nouns for the following common nouns. So they give them a common noun, and then they have to supply a proper noun. Now they could write it, they could do that verbally, really whatever best fits your child. And then D section is we are going to be talking about the capitalization rules, and all of these rules are things that they have in their book here. We're going to talk about apostrophes here and why we are seeing apostrophe in Mr. Popper's. We're going to be talking about capitalization rule number 6, and then we're going to go ahead and we're even going to talk about some italics here, and then how we would rewrite these if these were titles to books. And so it's just really nice, all of the things that they are having you do. And then the final thing over here is review your spelling words, which we received on day 2, or actually day 1, excuse me. And then we have this optional enrichment. Now this is where you are going to probably want the student book, because the optional enrichment is not in the teacher's guide. So you have all of these other things that you can do, but as far as this optional enrichment, it's only in the student book. So let's jump over to that. All right, so jumping over here, we can see that I is our optional enrichment. And here we can see, look at the picture, read the phrases in the box, and write the matching phrase under the picture. So example, right here we had triangle, square, circle, and then the words. So here they had to find the pattern and write the matching thing. On another piece of paper, make your own pictures and phrases and ask someone to match them. Now, all of the optional enrichments are going to be different. They're not all going to be like that, and I'll show you another one later. Day 4, and we're still in lesson 3 of day 4, it says you learned about complete sentences in 2A. Read the following sentences. So it gives them 4 sentences, and now we're going to talk about declarative and interrogative sentences, as well as exclamation sentences. So after we cover these 4, they're going to write their own. They're going to use these rules that we applied, and they're going to write their own. We're going to go back to the literature passage, and there are 2 words that mean about the same thing. We're going to find the word photograph, and then we are going to find a synonym for that. And so in this case, it's going to be picture. Here, we're going to work in the thesaurus, and I don't know, if you've been following me very long, you know that I just love using a thesaurus or a dictionary. I feel like we're really doing something if we are using those. And so here we are pulling out the thesaurus and we are looking for synonyms. Now, honestly, we ended up using the internet for this a lot more. We would just pull up a thesaurus. But yes, you can get the big book out. You can find some of these. But for us, I just thought it was a little bit easier and quicker, which when I'm using this program, that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for very streamlined, simplified, get it done, and that does this. And so that is why I tweak it to do what I want it to do. Here we have read the sentences from which the above words were taken and replace the words with the synonym. Does it sound okay? And that was really nice for her to see. Okay, she chose a synonym, but did it really make much sense? Was there one that we could have replaced with and it been better? So I did really like this activity right here because it did help her find that yes, there are synonyms, but there are some that just work better than others. Here we have is the meaning the same, and then we have an optional take an oral or written spelling pretest. So again, that's all optional for you. Day 5 of this lesson 3 is we're going to listen to the teacher as they read the first sentence of the literature passage. They're not going to write it the first time, they're just listening, and then I'm going to reread it and they're going to try to write it down. After you listen to it the second time, you're going to write what you have heard. We're going to take our spelling test on day 5, and then we have an optional think it through. And this is where we're going to find the definition for the words, and then they're going to draw a picture. So for instance, we had tension and protective. And so looked those words up, figured out what it meant, and then tried to draw a picture to represent those. Down on this section right here, we're going to look to see which one of these words are spelled correctly, this one or this one. And then she would choose, and then day 5 also includes skills from review activities. Now, this is where it says to choose skills. So you could either set the review aside for a whole different day, which is what we did most of the time, or you can just choose a few that you might want them to review that day. Here is the reviews. You can just see that we're touching base on all the things that we've been talking about, and we have all of the answers here. Now, if you have the student book, they're going to have their own review. You don't have to worry about copying this or rewriting it, anything like that. Now, let's look really quickly at another enrichment. Here was an enrichment here. List all the things you can think of that come in a box. List all the things you can think of that come in a bag. How is a box like a bag? How is a box different from a bag? So some enrichments we do, others we don't. Here is another one. Read these word analogies. Find a word in the box to put in the blank so that both pairs connect in the same way. So I just really like how there are just different activities to do throughout the same time. Now let's look at a book study. All right, let's look at a book study. So this is the second book study, and it is A Trumpet of the Swan. Here we're going to be working with the skills of, we've got some vocabulary words, some reading comprehension, journaling, thinking skills, composition, and map making. Every book study is going to be a little bit different, but these are the ones that we are working with here. In this section right here is going to be introducing the book, as a few questions to kind of spark the whole conversation about this, and then we have a summary of the book. The vocabulary words, it says find the words in the context, reread the sentences before and after the word. Do you understand the meaning of the word? And now look up the word in the dictionary and write a clear, simple definition and use it in a sentence. So here you can see we have 5 words and it tells the chapter that they're going to be in. So here, I don't think you would have to read the book before you worked with these vocabulary words. And I'll show you why I believe that is the case, and that's the way I would do it. But then we also have the option of just complete the following sentences if you don't want to have to write your own. So I like that there are different options to use with it. Now, this is where I'm telling you that I don't think you have to read the book first, because here are the discussion questions. So they are going to read chapters 1 through 6. And then they're going to answer these questions. And so I love that it tells you what chapter that they can find those questions in, or the answers in, as well as the answers along the side. It says, as you read the chapters, look for sections of the text that give you the answers to each of the question. Prepare for a discussion with your teacher and read several sections to him or her. So they're working on that reading aloud to you, which I think is very, very important. Then we have chapters 7 through 12, and we have questions about that. Chapters 13 through 18, chapters 19 through 21, all with questions to correspond with all of those. So depending on how quick of a reader you have or how slow of a reader you have, this may take more than a week, which is why I think it would be okay to mix it in with these. Like, I don't think you have to set a week aside for this book study. I would integrate it in because, one, you're just getting more done at one time. We have some story activities. So it says keep a daily diary like Sam did in the book, ending each entry with a question. Write in it every day for a week. Draw a map. And then they are going to be writing a paragraph explaining the reasons to this question right here. At the end of that, they're going to look through this I can assessment. I can complete my work. I can be creative. I can be accurate. I can do my work with a good attitude. I can do my work neatly. And so they're going to check all of those off if they were able to do that, and then they can go ahead and go through the Trumpet of the Swan. Now, yes, you are going to get a little bit of the words here. You're going to get little excerpts of the book, maybe before they had read it, if you do the book study while continuing on. That's totally up to you, but I personally, that's how I would do it, is I would do the book study and continue to do these. Now that we've went through most of this, I think this is going to be a really, really good program for somebody that needs an all-in-one. I think this is a really good program for someone that needs their child to do a lot of independent work. And if that is the case, you're going to want to get the student book because it's just less work for you to have to pull. The one thing with us, we were doing a different spelling. And so instead of doing the spelling in this book, we did our own spelling. If we were doing a writing project on something else, I would skip the writing project that is in here. So even though it's an all-in-one, doesn't mean that I was doing all of it all of the time. I was only doing what I felt we needed out of the program. Now, there were some days where we were just trying to do as much as we could, and so we just only used this. We didn't use our other spelling. We didn't use our other writing. We only used what was in this. And so that was something you can kind of move back and forth really easily if you are using, let's say, Fix-It Grammar. You're just getting extra practice with grammar when you use those things because it is integrated in it. But let's say you're using a writing program and they've already been doing lots of paragraphs, maybe don't do that section out of this. There are a few different typos that I find occasionally that I'm like not a huge fan of. I would like to see those things edited and corrected before they get printed, but I know that mistakes happen. I also, sometimes when you are using the teacher's book, it doesn't follow exactly verbatim in the student book, which can be kind of confusing sometimes if she's sitting across from me and she's following this and I'm following this and I'm reading and she'll ask me like, where are you at? Because it's not going exactly along with each other, if that makes sense. So those are just a few cons as far as those two don't mesh as seamlessly as you might think that they would. You definitely have to have the student book if you want to do the enrichments, the optional enrichments for that. And then I do think if you were just going to do a regular notebook with this, that could be difficult as far as there are certain things that they're wanting them to mark in the book. So you're either going to have to let them mark in your teacher's book or you're going to have to make a copy of it. So, which you can definitely do. But overall, I think this is a wonderful all-in-one program. It's not super duper expensive. You get the 4 book studies as part of it, which I think are really cool. Of course, you do have to have those books, get them from your library. Usually they're going to be very common books that you're going to be able to find to borrow for free or, find them used so that you're not getting a huge extra cost on top of that. But again, I also have the 4th grade level, so I'll put that down below in case you're interested. And their American history resource that we used was fantastic. But if you have any questions or comments, please put them down below. I'll try to link any videos that I talked about with this one. And if you enjoyed this video, I'd love if you consider giving me that thumbs up and hitting that subscribe button. I'll see you in my next one. Bye.